Motivators Table Podcast. We got a huge guest today. But first of all, let me shout out my sponsors. Thank you to Los Angeles Tribune for signing me to their huge podcasting platform. I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to tell my story and be my authentic self. Thank you to my sponsors, Pro Immune and Focus Pills. And thank you to Riverside Platform for allowing me to continue to do this. I'm doing 100 episodes, 100 real stories, 100 people this year. That is my capacity. That's what I'm doing. I wanted to transform the podcast virtually and let people know there are real people that love to come see the Motivators Table. But today we got a huge guest. I don't want to chop his name up wrong, but I was inspired by this guy when I met him, when I saw him, when I saw everything he's doing in the community. It's let me help me pronounce your first name, brother.
Lechon Kirb. Yeah.
Lechon Kirb. Appreciate you for coming on my platform. Thank you for allowing me just to interview you. I know you got a whole lot of things going on, but we wanted to just, spotlight you for a good 45 minutes to an hour. Just tell the world who you are. So first of all, let's tell the world who you are, where you come from.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and hopefully just get to share some cool stuff that will make a difference for people as they're building out their dreams and their careers and stuff. But I'm a brand strategist. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and spent most of my childhood there. My mom was really in the creative arts, so I was like initially kind of like immersed in the creative arts. She had like a production studio and television show where she would interview like music artists and things like that. And so she knew early age for me, like Lionel Richie and Sammy Davis Jr. and a bunch of people from Motown and all this kind of cool stuff. So I just kind of got immersed in the creative culture early stage, and then later took off to the Marine Corps. The short version of this is that when I was in the Marine Corps, I had a buddy that sold me an old film camera, and I just kind of took it on like training missions around the world with me, and it kind of gave me this different way of seeing things, and I think that transformed what I would be doing when I left. So that's the beginning stage. But yeah, man, I grew up in Pittsburgh, been in the creative aspect of things for a long time. That transformed into monetization and marketing and all that, and yeah, a lot of that's what I do today.
Man, I love it. I love it. I met you at the MIC conference. I heard about you. We spoke before the MIC, and I know you have a lot of people jumping in your DM, but I was one of them. Jumped in your DM. Was excited to talk to you. Then I met you in person. You were standing right next to me. I didn't even know that was you standing right next to me. We talked and we spoke, and
Yeah.
then I wanted to quickly step outside of my box and get to know you and understand you. And it's kind of cool to hear everything that you got going on. So first of all, who was you as a kid? Let me know how creative you were as a kid, because I know what you're doing now, but you know what I'm saying. Let me know. Let the world
I mean, I
know.
was super creative as a kid, man. I was super creative. I was doing a lot of songwriting. I was drawing and getting into music and all kinds of different things. My mom, funny enough, when I was in high school, she was trying to get me to do all kind of crazy stuff. She's just wild like that.
Yeah.
She wanted me to do like fencing and theater and all this kind of stuff. And so I actually went to like a performing arts school that was in addition to my regular high school. So I would leave school, go do sports and all that, and then later at night I would go to performing arts school. So we would learn, different things about theater and casting and productions and all this kind of stuff. So I was ultra creative as a kid, and so it's not a shock for me to be interested in those things today. But yeah, I was a big part of my childhood.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that. I love that growing up in Pittsburgh. I see a lot of that stuff that people, do and fencing and stuff like that. I grew up in Long Beach, so I saw it on TV, and I'm like, you know what? But we never had them opportunities to, what I'm saying? We saw it on TV or cartoons or whatever, but I would have loved to did stuff like that. But we know, that's what it comes with. So we appreciate you just sharing that. And walk us up on high school. How was you as a high school kid? Because I know in high school we start to develop a little personality of who we are and where we want to trend to. So tell me about that.
Well, first of all, I went to 14 different schools while I was in school,
Okay.
right? Um, so like every year for me was probably a different school. Every 6 months or a year, I was in a different environment. I was hyper into sports, but I think that I did develop some kind of skill when it comes to people because of how often I was like moving or in a different environment. And I say that because I just felt like at the time that if you didn't really get to know people very quickly, you would probably never see them again, at least at that stage, because it wasn't like it wasn't a social media thing or whatever. If you left, you just kind of stay in contact. If you left, you probably never seen them. We were doing pen pals, right?
Yeah.
So I think that did change me in a way, so that when I do connect with people, I'm able to show up in a way that just kind of removes things from the space, you know. And allows for us to connect organically very rapidly. And that today, I think, still holds true for me. So, yeah, in high school, I was hyper into sports, man, hyper creative, but definitely silly and fun. Like, you know what I mean? But, yeah, 100%.
I love that. I love that because I always like to dig deeper to who the person is before we see them now. Like we see you and we see you develop, but at the motivators table, I want to know like how did you get that killer instinct? How did you get that passion? How did you develop all that stuff? So as we walk you
Yeah.
upon, getting out of high school, did you go to college straight after high school or what did you do?
Well, backing up a little bit, right?
Okay.
And I think this might be important to kind of share is because you mentioned something about like this having this kind of killer instinct. My mom was doing a lot of really, I think, valuable things. However, she was struggling financially. So there were times where like we were so hungry that I was eating asbestos off the walls. Like I was playing hide and go seek in a dumpster. I sold my sister's shoes for food, at one point. So it's like I kind of developed the whatever it takes mentality. And so when I left high school, yeah, I did go to college initially, but I felt like it wasn't really going to get me as far along as I needed to go, as fast as I felt like I needed to go. And that's what kind of led me into the Marine Corps. So I went into the Marine Corps a year after leaving high school because I did that year at college. And then that was kind of to put me on a completely different path. But yeah, for sure. That killer instinct I did develop. And I was willing to kind of put myself in harm's way in order to kind of create a better life for myself. So yeah.
I love that. And then we at Motivators, we already know old followers, new followers, patrons, everybody understands like in order to be great, you got to go through some trials and tribulations. And what he just said just now, Motivators, get your highlighters, your pens ready, that it wasn't all good. You know what I'm saying? Everybody right here, we think it's all good because he's fencing, he's doing all these cool things. No, mom was struggling. And in the 80s, 90s, a lot of our parents struggled in a lot of situations, especially if they were single parents, and hearing that story resonates with mine and seeing how my father struggled. My mother passed when I was small, but my dad did the best he can for me and my sister in Long Beach, California, to take us away from these drugs and gangs and things that we were seeing, even though we were gravitating heavy to that. So we heard that story. So you was eating asbestos, and people don't know what that is. And I was a project manager. You're not supposed to be even around that type of stuff.
No. But if you're hungry, you'll do a
You
lot
do
of
it.
things.
Yeah, you do a lot of things. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. But I say that because I think that it colors me through the right lenses, so people have a good sense of like where I'm coming from. But yeah.
I love it, and that's what we do here at the Motivators Table. We always talk about the dark days, and you cannot inspire anybody if you don't work for yourself, and you can't inspire or motivate anybody if you ain't never been through anything to inspire somebody about. So that's what you have right there. So you talked about you and your family, your siblings. Like how many siblings you have?
I grew up with my sister.
Okay.
She's close to me. I have half brothers and stuff. We're not as close, but my sister's probably the closest to me. We're about a year and a half separated. Yeah.
Okay.
And she's still lives in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So I go back and visit from time to time.
I love that. Like my sister. My sister's 3 years older than me. She lives here with me, so you know what I'm saying. But God
Nice.
is good, though. We went through our trials and tribulations and stuff like that. And when I went through my darkest time, I went to go grab her. She was living in San Bernardino in a drug house, and I was like, "Hey, you at the lowest of your level? Go get your sister." God, I was like, "God, I don't get along like that. Like she gonna give me hell." But when I brought her here, my life started to change. And when she told me a couple of months ago, she was like, the only thing I needed was your love. And now she's a GM of Circle K, drives, she has her own car. She's doing really good. So I'm
That's
proud of her.
amazing.
God is good. So let's get back on your story. So tell me how you was after you graduated high school.
Um, I mean, the short answer to this is that when I went to the Marine Corps, I think that it changed a lot of different things. For one, it put me in many different kinds of environments. And that was, I think, life changing in a lot of ways. It took me around the world, and I lived in different countries and had these different kinds of experiences. And also, like, that was the first time I felt like I had the support that I needed to kind of create life in the direction that I desired. It does come with some some complexities. Don't just go into the military, because when you're 18, you don't really know what you're signing up for, and that could go a lot of different ways. But I will say that it did work out for me, and it was a good thing for me to do at that time, for sure. It did lead me down the path of like pursuing other things in terms of entrepreneurship, because you start to sharpen your own blade in terms of how you see things and at the pace of which you're able to learn things and comprehend things. And so, yeah, that was very helpful for me. And I think that it was a critical step for where I would go leaving the Marine Corps, for sure.
I love that. And how was your time in the Marine Corps?
Colored. you know
Let's get into that. We both veterans.
It's
We both
textured.
veterans.
I mean, I think there are people coming from all different kinds of walks of life, and to my earlier point, like, they're young too, like, so whatever walk of life that they've come through, and now they're young and they think that they, kind of have a really strong sense of what life is about. They really don't yet. They really, really don't yet. Even the people that are much older and they're about to retire, you got to figure they're about to retire, but they're like 40.
Yeah.
And all that they've ever known is that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to learn outside of that environment. But I do, like, it was just good for me, man. The Marine Corps is, there's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot to develop. But it's complicated and it's heavy sometimes, and you see crazy things, and you have to do crazy things, but I think for me, it was, I'm proud of how I showed up. I did the hard things. I didn't make any excuses about not doing those things, and I developed myself into someone that can manage a lot.
I love that. What year did you join the Marines?
99.
99. Okay, so I was graduating high school in 99, so that's dope. I joined in 02 in the United States Army. So
Nice. Hoorah.
yes.
Hoorah, hoorah. But yeah, it was good, man. But to be fair, like, there's so much of my journey has occurred after I left the Marine Corps. I think at that point you're just trying to figure out where you are in the world, and what who you are and what it means, and all that kind of stuff. So I think most of my development really occurred after that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about a little bit some more in the Marines, and then let's talk about the journey afterwards. Where was you at in the Marines? Where was you located? Only in California, or in the?
No, I never really spent too much time in California, because I came out of Parris Island.
Parris Island,
So
okay.
East Coast, yeah. I came out of Parris Island and did Marine combat training, all that MCT out of Carolina, and then I went in originally for explosives and disposal, so we did that out of Redstone Arsenal out of Alabama. But I ended up stationed in Camp Lejeune for a number of years, and that's where I spent a good half of my career. And then I got into a bit of a debacle, I guess you could say. Physical entanglement.
Yes.
But that afforded me the opportunity to go to Marine Security Forces.
Okay.
So I went to Marine Security Forces counterterrorism unit out in Europe, and did that. So explosives with them and all that. And so we moved around a bit, and and it was like a really interesting time too, because once again I enlisted in '99. And so shortly after that, the world became like very, very different. And so, but it's the Marine Corps for me, I think was really, really good, because I established some really amazing relationships. I picked up a new language. I lived in different countries and stuff. And I do think that it prepares you to do better things once you leave. Gave me some funding for college and saved up some money to do different things, so, and from my experience, like being around the world, seeing these different cultures and these different things, I really gained an appreciation for what it was providing for me. But the biggest appreciation I think that I got was that growing up in the States, being black, brown, indigenous, or whatever you are, there's kind of like this experience that it's like an oppressive experience based on the outside or how they perceive you. And I didn't really feel that in other countries. In fact, I felt like admiration. I didn't really know what it felt like to not feel pressured by like the police or any of those kinds of things. It just felt kind of freeing, you know, in a way. And I didn't even know that that was something that existed, because that was my norm, you know, like having police kicking in your door and drugs and gangs and alcohol stuff around, you know, and just not having that, it just kind of was like a whole new lens to see the world through.
Right. I love that. I love the fact how you explain that. And I tell people all the time, especially like you said, being minorities, like it's different for us joining the military because, you know, I came from California. I didn't see a lot of people from down south, let alone seeing a lot of people from the outside world like that. So I was a knucklehead in basic training. You know, I couldn't get right until I got right before I graduated. I was fighting in basic training. I wasn't conforming at all. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of things that was happening in my life that I tried to pull on the Los Angeles, Long Beach, um, just way of life, but the military wasn't having it. But I would tell you this, the military saved my life because if I didn't continue what I was doing in the military and pass the basic training and right after that going into Germany and going to Iraq, I would have been out there in California probably dead or in jail. You know what I'm saying? Because that's all I saw and that's all I wanted to do. And I didn't know there was no other way. So shout out to the United States military for changing both of our lives and just giving us a leg up. I tell people all the time, it's a cheat code. My son is leaving in the next few months to basic training. And I tell people all the time, I said it's a cheat code. Whether you love it or you like it or you hate it, it's going to put you ahead of your peers. So when you are out, if you do the right thing, you can continue being a positive mantle in your society and pushing forward because that's the type of respect a black man don't have. You know what I'm saying? Period.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I love the touch on it. Can you tell me your outlook on that?
Well, I do think that you develop a different kind of skill set. Like your ability to think critically changes because in the military it's vital. You know, it's not like college, or if you don't think critically, you just didn't do so well on the test. Like if you're not able to think critically and function within the stressful environments, you could die or someone else, or, you know, so I think that it trains you to become, it forges you into something different. And when
Right.
you leave, those skill sets and that muscle memory becomes just how you function in life. And so, yeah, very, very powerful for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So tell me about exiting the military and then starting your journey on as a entrepreneur. How was that?
Well, you know, the short answer is I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I had like I said earlier, I had a buddy that sold me a film camera. And when I started taking pictures, it just felt like there was some magic there, you know? And when I left, I started just doing more of that, and developing my skills and just kept like stacking it on. And eventually it started getting some awareness. You know, it got picked up by some larger brands, BET, Centric, VH1, Red Bull. These were editorials, campaigns, billboards, and things like that, which was amazing. But what I learned quickly was that you could become as skilled as you want and get yourself into these opportunities, but being skilled is not the same as thriving and making money.
Right.
And so I needed to figure out that piece because I'm thinking at the stage, I'm like, wow, this is good enough that they're using it, you know, but this is not good enough for me that it's going to really create the right future of things.
Right.
And so I had to learn a lot more. I had to really buckle down on like, what does this mean for business? What does this mean for growth? And I had one friend that he was looking at what I was doing. He was also had skills and experience in like production, but he was involved with software. And he said to me one time, man, like you're doing awesome stuff, but you've got to figure out a way to start making money in your sleep. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean at the time? And I started asking him a bunch of questions because he was making millions of dollars per month in software, and he didn't even know any software. I'm like, how are you doing this? He's like, well, I don't actually need to know any software. I need to know some brilliant people, and I know some very, very smart people. And that was the beginning of me starting to shift all of how I thought about business, because like I said, I was spending all my time trying to develop a skill, but it started to shift like how I started thinking about business, because up until that point, I was just like, well, what can I do? How can I show up? Not how can I facilitate something, or how can I orchestrate or strategize a way to solve a high value problem, which is a different outcome. And that was like the beginning of me changing that.
I love that. I love that. And that's how your strategic mind works and stuff like that. And I tell people all the time, especially entrepreneurs, when I failed in business, I went back and got my master's. I'm not saying everybody needs to go get that, but I didn't, we, as African American people, we don't always understand business. We understand the hustle, but what your people's told you is how to make money in your sleep. We don't understand that a lot. We like the way it looks and how it feels, and we talk about it. But are you making money while you sleeping? And that's the real entrepreneur. That's the real juggernaut and mogul of the game and stuff like that. So how did you transition to that?
Well, the short answer is I met a woman who's now my wife, and she already had her doctorate in professional development, educational programming. So she was, an educator by trade. But she had a consultancy where I felt as though they weren't really highlighting her to the degree that she was adding value, and that was kind of like I didn't feel like they were doing right by her is the short answer to that. And I had now so many years of like branding and development. I had taken myself to school for multimedia, which was like web development and graphic design and photo editing and film editing and all this kind of audio engineering and stuff. And so I said to her, like, hey, listen, I think you need to do your own thing. I'll build it for you. And so I set out to start building it for her. And, during that process, I learned a lot, about, because she was not only consulting with her background, but she was also in the online marketing space, and they were building courses and trainings. And I quickly started to see the magic between what they were doing and that connection point between having something scalable or building things that were scalable that could make you money in your sleep. And I just felt like that could work. I'll build up this aspect. I'll learn, during the process. And I did. Yeah.
I love that. And I love the fact that you said your wife. That's dope. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to your wife. I'm
Shout out
not,
to her.
I don't touch on relationships enough, but that having a marriage in a situation like that, that's a business. And people don't understand like that at the lowest level, that is your business, is your relationship with your wife or your spouse or your husband and stuff like that. And I love how y'all came together and she allowed you to do that and operate in your gift. And you saw what her gift was. Y'all made it come true. Can you talk about that?
I just think that she is unreasonable as a human. She's just very unreasonable. And I noticed that right away because I had gotten this like opportunity to go work with some like creative projects in LA, and I live in Florida. And when I got those opportunities, I really didn't have like all of the things in place yet. Like what it was going to cost, like what was the fun, like what money I had or this or that. And she was just like, you got a big opportunity you go do in LA, go do it. In fact, I'll back you up to go do it. I'll drive you there. And then she did twice. And I was just like, what? Okay. So I had to immediately start looking at her differently just by the way that she was kind of moving with me about these unreasonable things. Unreasonable in terms of like what it was going to mean or what it was going to do. We were new in our relationship at that time. I could have very easily been moving to LA, and she was going to help me do it, even though, things weren't, we just hadn't have any clarity. And so, Yeah, shout out to her for just being unreasonable and just a badass human.
Right. Shout out to her,
Because it
man.
didn't make no sense.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we started building a bunch of stuff that was like helping these organizations. We really started early stage targeting the marketing industry because they were selling a lot of like courses and making a lot of money, but not necessarily knowing what was going to make a difference for people. And so that was her expertise. She had built this process using over 500 plus research studies of which learning strategies connect to human learning, and was solving this high value problem. And so we started really doing that in online marketing industry. We had built like a virtual summit. In our virtual summit, I got introduced to this guy who was building a bunch of virtual summits. I said, man, I want to learn how to do that. And I had built this one because I had some technical skills, but once I had like kind of a format for doing it, essentially we built this program where we were helping like thousands of people learn how to build online courses, and that grew and grew and grew. And we started getting early stage. We got this one sponsor that was like, "Hey, we want to come in and do this with you," and it was life changing because normally if you build anything, any event, any product, any service, you have to be the one to drive traffic for it. You've got to find your clients, you got to price it, you got to do all the technical, all that kind of stuff. And they came in and they were like, hey, we're going to give you money to do this. We're going to help you curate like speakers and stuff like that. We're going to drive traffic through our email list. And they were getting about 20,000 email opt-ins per week for their platform. And then they even leveraged some of their marketing budget to pay. So it was like really, really successful for us. But it changed how we even thought about like doing business. Because prior to that, we were just like, okay, well, however much personal traffic we can drive or how much wherever we're going to pay for. But then we started getting into a scenario where we can offset that to brands as a partnership model. And that changed everything, man. Getting sponsors to give you a thing to build the thing you already wanted to build. And yeah, that still has a remnants for the kind of things we do today.
Right. I love that, man. I love the fact how you breaking it down. And people don't understand too when you start to monetize and do all these things virtually or podcasting or commercials or movies, you need sponsors. And I speak. And when I started to speak, it was first of all to save my own life and pouring back into myself and get myself out of that suicidal ideation the fourth time. But when I started to blow up, I spoke for free for 4 years, not knowing that the people that wanted to pay me, that wanted to bring me, were sponsors coming to these events. So people don't understand that, yeah, going to speak at these organizations and colleges and these schools and jails. I go to speak at jails. I'm all over the world, but those are sponsors paying me to come and put me as a keynote on their stages to make that company look good. And I know that type of business. I thought it was the business bringing me, but there are sponsors, and that's great that you touched on that because a lot of people don't understand. In order to monetize your life, you need a sponsor, and the first sponsor you had honestly was your wife, and that's dope. And then after that, y'all started to work together collectively and put together an awesome platform. And then she said, you know what? I'll drive you to Los Angeles. That's so dope. I love that. That makes me happy because now I get to see. I've never been married before. So now I see that there's hope that, hey, you know what? Two people genuinely that's in two different fields can work together to bring something together. So that's dope.
Yeah. Like I said, she's unreasonable. She's unreasonable. I wouldn't advise for somebody to do the things that she would be willing to do.
Yeah.
It's just high risk. But yeah, she definitely was a sponsor. But it really was like a symbiotic relationship because the value that I was bringing her to build out her brand and get her to kind of leave this company where they don't really see her value and I do, and I had the tools to like highlight that, it just worked, man.
Right.
But to the sponsor, like the organization sponsor point, it changed how we were thinking about business because it solved the problem of traffic, and we had probably 400 speakers on our own platforms before we were even like noticing or realizing like, hey, this is actually a stage, and we should look at other kinds of stages too and get involved with that, which is partly how I'm involved with stages today, is like dealing with like industry experts and authors and speakers and people that had really meaningful things to share in the world. they would get on these stages, but then on the back end, they wouldn't have anything that allow people to go deeper with them. You know, like they didn't have offers or memberships or coaching or products or courses and stuff like that. And we developed that. So it just kind of worked. But yeah, it's having a sponsor. Yes. But it's more about like how you position yourselves to take advantage of what a sponsor can do. So like for us, early stage, what we were doing with Thinkific is once they were helping us, we started to really feel like bad a little bit, like, oh my God, like everything they're doing is like they're running everything for us, because they were doing all the technicals too. They had their own technical people building all our landing pages and websites and stuff. So we started kind of just strategizing, like, how could we then add value to them? Because we already knew that the cost of their acquisition for Facebook ads was like $40 or $50 per email. It was like very expensive, right? And we started bringing in other sponsors that were more complimentary. And so what we were doing is we would bring in other sponsors that would be like complimentary. Think of like McDonald's and Coca-Cola. They're not competitors, but they have like a symbiotic relationship. They have the same audience, essentially. Not necessarily the same people, but the same audience. And so we were like looking for those opportunities. We started bringing them in. And so what it started to do was, if they would come in and sponsor like our events or our workshops and stuff like that, these other sponsors would then do the same thing that they were doing. And so we got to kind of cross-pollinate these email lists and these audiences. So it was like driving down the cost of them even participating in this, right? Which was way different. And so then it became like a massive value play for them to even participate with what we're doing, which gave them a lot of excitement for us to do other things with them, right? And build out these other campaigns. But yeah, it was very helpful. And I think a transition point for how we thought about business.
I love that, man. Just getting inside of your brain and hearing that just makes me excited, because it lets me know there's a way. And motivators, if you're not paying attention, you don't got your highlighters, your pens, he's breaking it down to the lowest common denominator. He's letting you know how it is inside of these worlds of sponsorship and virtual and everything you got going on. I love this type of conversation. Let's talk about what you got going on right now.
Yeah. I have a lot going on.
Yeah, I know you do.
The short answer is right now for me, like, my priority this year is to like finish my book. I have a book I'm in the middle of writing called Undeniable. It's really designed to be like a reflection, you know, to inspire you from the future tense into the place that you are now, to like encourage you and to get you to just adopt the right practices and things that are going to push you to the next level. And part of that process is the language that we use to describe our experiences. And it's something that I don't think people talk enough about, but really our titles and our descriptors paint us in a particular way. I'll give you an example. If you say that you're tired, I am tired, you are giving yourself like a command. You're saying that I am this, right? It seems like a subtle thing, but it's really not. You are disempowering yourself with your own language. Now, there's nothing wrong with feeling the need to get rest, but how you describe that and how you paint that is a completely different thing. So my book is really helping people see where those filters are and how that language is either putting them in a position where they can uplift themselves in their lives, or it's disempowering them and keeping them in, just conditions that aren't truly serving them. So that's Undeniable. And as an extension of Undeniable, I have done all kinds of different things to expand what can be done with it. One is I've been talking with some different like publishing companies, because yeah, you could go self-publish your book or whatever, but like you have, which is not, I don't want to discourage anyone from doing that. I'll tell you why I don't feel as excited about it, but like I'm not discouraging you from doing that. The problem with it is if you self-publish, you don't then own the consumer relationship. Meaning, let's say that you self-publish and you put your books on KDP or Amazon, and they sell a bunch of copies. That's great for some money, I guess you could say. But if you don't know who's bought, you don't know when they bought, you don't know their emails, and you can't reach out to them for any kind of opportunities, and also they then sell that same stuff to all of your competitors, it's not really a benefit, even though that it looks like it. So I wanted to own all of my own IP, and so that's why I'd been looking at like traditional publishing, so that it can go out the right ways. I can leverage their distribution models and put it into Barnes and Noble and all those kinds of things. But if anybody knows how studios or publishers work, generally, they want to buy your IP. They want to buy your IP and then give you, once they start pushing it through their marketing and their distribution channels, like a revenue share of the thing that they bought from you, which I didn't want to do. So I created my own publishing company in order to do that. Not only created my own publishing company, but I'm looking into what's called exploring some potentials with what's called an imprint. So essentially it's I'm putting my name, I'm owning my IP for the books and the things that I'm creating off the book, but then I'm leveraging a partnership for doing distribution through their traditional distribution channels, so it can still get out there in the world. So I'm in the process of doing that. And as a part of this, I've been exploring, doing a pilot for a show based on this. It's really kind of like talking with people that have gone through the transformation of chasing down their dream and what they needed to go through to make that happen. I've put the brand of Undeniable, at least some of the brand from Undeniable, into the gaming space. So we now just got our assets into Fortnite via strategic partnership. So we've got assets in there that are promoting Undeniable. But it's exciting, man. This year actually came on, last year, for a platform called TEDx, if you're familiar with that, TED Talks, TEDx. So I'm now the curator for TEDx, so I can help other people elevate their voices. I mean, it's a lot, but it's all really exciting stuff.
Yes, I see a lot that you got going on, and I will tell you live on the air that what you created with Undeniable, I would love to be a part of that movie script or series because, I bet on myself all the time. I got a hell of a story coming from a lot of things. I don't know if you heard my story, but I would love to sit down offline and tell you that and tell you how I got from that to this and see if it fits your undeniable situation. And and it's
I would
TEDx.
love that.
I met you at the MIC. You have a lot that you're doing for veterans in the community. And I met you at the MIC and we talked, and then you told me about TEDx. And I got my email and I didn't make the list, but I'm excited to know that this it's
It's a lot of
okay.
people, man.
It's okay. It's okay. I know that God has a plan. As a human notion, you will feel a certain type of way, but at the end of the day, you know that you're working hard and God has a way, and it's a time and place for everything. But we appreciate what you're doing in the community, and TEDx Orlando is going to be huge and special. I saw the building, I saw the place. I know a lot of people that's in it. Dr. Keita, I see this other lady.
Love Dr. Keita. Yeah.
Yeah, she's heavy on LinkedIn like myself, and then I see another lady that's having the military creator con. She's a part of it. I'm speaking at their event in April. So God is aligning the people that needs to be in the situation, and man, you're special. You're doing a lot of big things, and
Thank you, man. Thank you,
I'm
man.
inspired. I don't bring nobody on my motivators. Y'all know already. I do not bring anybody on my channel that I'm not inspired. I'm inspired by what you got going on, and I would love to pick your brain. And tell us
Well, I'm going to
something.
be at that event in is it Dallas? Yeah, Dallas.
Yes, Dallas,
In
Arlington.
Arlington. I'm
Yeah.
going to be at that event. I'm going to be speaking at that event actually too.
Okay.
And yeah, we can vibe on all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk. Yeah, we meet again. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Let's. Do you have anything new that you got going on, or that you would love to got going on? And also, I would tell you too, I'm an author. My third book comes out February 15th. It's called A Good Heart Don't Pay Bills. It talks about getting out the military, becoming an entrepreneur, betting on yourself, and the part of having a good heart is you give everybody a lot of leadway, and when you fail, everybody leaves. So it talks about the business I started as entrepreneurship, and what triggered me to go get my master's in business and understand business. But it comes out on Amazon. All my books are on Amazon. I just put it out there as a lead generator. My next book, The Dark Days of Entrepreneurship, is going to be not self-published, but I'm getting a published company like you're doing, because I just wanted to get my story out. So my first book was called From the Block to the Board. It's an ebook. The second book was called The Elephant in the Room, and then the third book is A Good Heart Don't Pay Bills. I share that link
Love
with
it.
you. And I love to hear these type of stories. It gives me hope. And let us know what you got going on in the near future. I know you got the TEDx, you got the MIC, all these things. What else you got going on?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more I want to do with the military veteran space. I think that there's this transition that happens from when you go from like operator to executive, and there's a lot of things that people need to overcome in between there. And so, yeah, there's a lot I want to do there that I'll share with you offline. But I'm working with some good people to kind of bring that to life. Not only because like I said earlier, it's one thing to have like a particular skill set. It's another thing for you to understand how that skill set applies to the world, and then you are compensated to the degree of the value of the problem you're solving for. That's very different than I have prices, or I have a service, or I have a product, or whatever. Right? How do you cut through the noise? How do you get in those rooms? Is what I'm interested in. Is helping people kind of make that transition faster. Not something that takes you 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to cut through. Something that allows you to kind of get in those rooms and then present the right things that are going to get you the support that you need more rapidly. So that's a part of my focus for 2026. And yeah, I'm excited about that, man, because ultimately this life is short,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that veterans are really an underexplored resource.
Right, we are. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of resources out for entrepreneurship and veteran. I went through a lot of courses that was tailored to the military veteran to get to learn entrepreneurship. But what I tell you, what they don't have is a resource on what happens when you fail and how it's connected to your PTSD and your trauma and all them things. And that's what I started to develop. I started to create something called Get in Front of Your Ugly and Activate Your Gift. And that just tells the veteran entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, hey, listen, it'll be great when you start. All the dreams and goals is fun. But at the end of the day, when you fell alone. So where are the resources that, hey, when you fail, who do you go to? Who do you talk to? How do you pivot? How do you understand where to pivot? So these are the things that I'm working on too, in my niche and everything like that.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you coming online and let the world know your social media. Where can they find you at?
Yeah. Well, before we wrap, I want to touch on what you're saying about failure, right? And I think it's an important point. Most people think that you're not supposed to. Like if you take a big bet and you fail, that you're not supposed to. And the real truth of it is that it is the toll that you pay to obtain any kind of success. You
Right.
need to fail into it to develop the muscles of success, and that is like the hard part. People are trying to avoid the failure. You need to really run at it as soon as you can so that you can break through and achieve that goal. So the other secondary part to this is that people often make themselves the source of the failure when they fail. They say, I'm a failure, right? Not, I failed to achieve a mission. I failed to solve a particular problem. These are two different things, but they're overlap. They feel like they're the same, right? When you're the source of the failure, you're a problem, you're an issue, there's something wrong with you. When you just fail to solve the particular problem, now we need to look at like, what didn't you have? Did you not have enough resources? Did you not have enough time? Did you not have a strong enough structure? Did it not have alignment? Like, you see what I'm saying? And that, I think, really transforms like what we can do when we are willing to bet on ourselves and we're willing to put ourselves out there, even if it's high risk, that we're not the source of the failure, even if we failed in response. Like, we didn't get our desired outcome.
Right.
Anyways, man, I love everything you're up to, man. I want to be supportive and be engaged with it too, with the books and everything. Where can you find me, guys? You can find me online. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can just find me, Lechon Kirb, LeChonKirb. I am hyper interested in helping people chase after their goals and their dreams, specifically in the creative space. If you're interested in that, if you're an author, speaker, you want to get on stages and any of that kind of stuff, I'm a good resource for that. So definitely reach out to me.
I'm here. I'm reaching out. So I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. And this is a segment where we switch into, what I do best, and it's making sure that I pour into you. So what I want you to do is we do a little Peter Pan effect. Back in the day when we watched our cartoons, they really told us stories. Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, they really was affirmations, manifestation. They believed in everything that they did, and they can have anything they dreamed on, they can have it. They had a full course meal, and it wasn't really there, but it was there. So pick your cup up. a imaginary cup, like, and then pour it out because I don't want nothing in it. I don't want to mix no substance with it. And I hold it up, and I want to tell you, sir, I'm proud of you. I know that is cliche. We care for you. We love you. Thank you for everything you're doing in the community. Thank you for believing in people that can't even believe in themselves. I know how many people you touch. I see what you do. You are very quiet. You're very to yourself, very observant. I watch you. That's what operators do. We watch, we assist, then we perform. And at the end of the day, I see what you're doing. I couldn't wait to talk to you. But at the end of the day, I've been watching you, and I see that you're doing the same with me. I appreciate your support. Thank you for just being who you are. God put you on this earth for a certain reason, and that reason right now is triggering so many people to do the best that they can do. And thank you for just staying in the fight with all the guys, especially our veterans. Veterans need to see other veterans do good. And sometimes we don't believe that we can do that because we did so much in the military. We thought that sometimes our gift has run out. No, we have multiple gifts. God gave us a lot of gifts. My gift now, after failing and bankruptcy and all these things that I went through, is speaking life. And I couldn't speak life into anybody else until I spoke life into myself. And in January 2025, I woke up the top 50 motivational speakers in the world because I started just to believe in myself and put my content out there and create it. Thank you for seeing that. Thank you for believing in me, myself, and making sure that, hey, you know what? When we shook hands, you told me we would talk. And you a man of your word. And thank you for everything that you're doing on LinkedIn. And people, if you do not know this man, you need to go in there and find him and pick his brain. This is a rare, one of a kind person. God has blessed him with a certain type of gift. And if you're trending in software and gaming and speaking and books and all that, you need to target him. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you for just coming on my platform, taking the time. I know you're busy. And motivators, I told you we had a bang. I told you this is how we start season 5. We started it with a bang. I appreciate you guys for tapping in live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. I can't wait to see you guys soon. Boom.
Thank you, man.